Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta, Additional Pastimes, Around the World, 1967 to 1969, and 1972 to 1975. Additional Pastimes of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, by Satsvarup Das Goswami. Chapter 10, A World Tour, Part 4. Miami, February 25, 1975. The Miami Temple was located on 2.5 acres in suburban Coconut Grove. On the property were several large banyan trees, and flowers and tropical vines grew along the fencing surrounding the property. To Srila Prabhupada, the climate was similar to India. As he was entering the temple room on his arrival, Prabhupada noticed an adjoining room housing tulsi plants, and he entered. Srila Prabhupada smiled to see the room crowded with very healthy tulsis in large pots. He then entered the temple room. Once again, Srila Prabhupada beheld Gaur Nitai as the worshipable deity. He had just come from Caracas, where the same two transcendental brothers were the presiding Archa-Vigraha incarnations. It was mid-afternoon, and Srila Prabhupada sat on the Vyasasana and addressed the 20 or so devotees who had gathered in Miami for his arrival. It is a great fortune for you, Srila Prabhupada began. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared for delivering all kinds of fallen souls in this age. Srila Narottam Das Thakur sings, Papi tapi jata chilo, hari name ud harilo, tada sakshi jagai madhai. So, Brajendra Nandana ye shachi sutta hoilo se, Balarama hoilo nitai. The same Krishna and Balaram. Krishna has appeared as the son of Mother Shachi, and Balaram has appeared as Nityananda. Their business is to deliver all fallen souls, especially in this age, Kali Yuga. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission was that he should be present by his name, by his form, by his pastimes, in every town and village of the world. And you are fulfilling his mission. So, undoubtedly, you will be blessed, and you will get Krishna's mercy through the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. To understand Krishna is not so easy thing. Srila Prabhupada emphasized the difficulty of attaining spiritual knowledge in the material world. Recalling a recent talk with a psychiatrist in Caracas, he told how the man had adamantly refused to understand the existence of the soul. So the devotees were fortunate. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada continued, speaking slowly, out of his great compassion for the fallen souls, he appeared. Krishna comes also. But Krishna is not so liberal. Krishna makes conditions that, first of all, you surrender, then I take charge of you. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is more compassionate than Krishna, although Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are the same thing. By Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, we are so easily understanding Krishna that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is present here. You worship him. It is not very difficult. Yagyaihi sankirtan prayer yajantihi suma dashaha Krishna varnang tvisha krishnang sango pangastra parshadam yagyai sankirtan. You simply chant Hare Krishna mantra, and whatever you can, offer Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is very kind. He does not take offense. Radha Krishna worship is a little difficult. We have to worship with great awe and veneration. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has voluntarily come to deliver the fallen souls. Srila Prabhupada continued explaining the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya does not accept any offense from his worshippers, and he is pleased just by your dancing and chanting, the easiest process for God realization. So, as far as possible, Prabhupada requested, if possible 24 hours. If that is not possible, at least 4 times, 6 times, chant the Hare Krishna mantra before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you will get success in your life. So, I am very glad that you are worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu. So, continue to do this. There is no need of installing Radha Krishna, at least at the present moment. When you become more advanced in spiritual consciousness, then you can establish. But even if you do not establish, it does not matter. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is sufficient. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahe Anya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is combination of Radha and Krishna. In one place, you worship Radha and Krishna. So I see this place is very nice, and you are also very nice. Take advantage of this opportunity and go on chanting Hare Krishna mantra and worship Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He will bless you sufficiently to become successful in getting shelter at the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Srila Prabhupada stayed in the house next door to the temple in several rooms prepared for him. In the living room, an altar was set up, and to the right and left of the altar were potted tulsi plants in white straw baskets. On the wall hung a large poster of Lord Krishna speaking to the despondent Arjuna. Traveling such a great distance from South America to leave again after a day or two was a real test whether Prabhupada could follow his usual schedule while in Miami, but he did. As usual, he took rest that evening and rose about 1 a.m. translating and commenting on Srimad Bhagavatam in the same room he had slept in. Wherever he was, Srila Prabhupada was always steady with Krishna. As he had once commented, "No place is my home. My home is at the lotus feet of Krishna." Putting aside his books, Prabhupada took his japa beads and, in the still pre-dawn, began chanting, pacing back and forth in his room. Sruta Kirti, who had returned as Prabhupada's servant, entered, made obeisances, and performed some duties in Prabhupada's room. While chanting, Srila Prabhupada gazed at the picture of Krishna and Arjuna. Suddenly he smiled and said, "I like this picture very much. It is very instructive." "What is that, Srila Prabhupada?" his servant asked. "Krishna is saying," Srila Prabhupada explained, "you have to give up everything. Very difficult job. You have to kill your family members. Arjuna couldn't do it, but he had to do it because it was Krishna's order. That is Krishna bhajan. One has to be ready to give up everything and do what Krishna wants." Dawn arrived, but the skies remained gray. Prabhupada went by car to a scheduled section of Miami Beach and walked along the shore. He wore a wool chadar against the slight chilliness in the air. Sureshwara. We were walking right along the edge of the water, and the water would come up, and Prabhupada's cane would touch just beyond where the water reached. His cane would make little holes in the sand. Someone would ask a question, mostly Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and Prabhupada would sometimes stop walking to answer it. At one point on the walk, when Prabhupada stopped to answer a question, I stopped right in back of him. We would all walk with him, and the positions of the people would change just by the nature of our walking. At one point, when he stopped, I was right in back of him, behind his head, and as he answered the question, he turned and faced me. I suddenly had an intense understanding that even though I was next to Prabhupada physically, actually I was a million miles away from him because my consciousness was so un-Krishna conscious. Srila Prabhupada wanted to see the temple rooms and the grounds. But when he walked into the yard and saw it covered with leaves from the various trees, he showed his displeasure. He reprimanded the temple president, Abhiram, saying that the grounds should always be kept clean and the leaves raked. Actually, because the yard had no grass, the devotees had carefully gathered leaves and spread them out evenly all over the yard, thinking they would be like a soft carpet for Srila Prabhupada. They imagined he would like to walk on it when he went to the Vyasasan they had set up for him outdoors under the banyan tree. But Prabhupada criticized the dirty, unkempt appearance. This was Krishna's property, he said, and should not be neglected. Look at the neighbors' yards, he pointed out. Their yards are clean. Why do you have leaves on the ground? Abhiram made an excuse. Under the leaves, he said, there's only dirt. So we thought the leaves would keep the dust from rising. Prabhupada replied sharply, there are nice lawns everywhere. Why, here you have dirt. Why? Another Miami devotee made the mistake of replying, Prabhupada, there's no one to do it. Srila Prabhupada looked around at the 20 people following him. How was this? No one to do it? He refused to speak in the backyard until they cleared away the leaves. And so, while Prabhupada went to his room, the devotees began to remove the carefully placed carpet that they now saw as piles of dirty insect-infested leaves. For breakfast, Srila Prabhupada took the juice of local coconuts, which were golden colored, and found it delicious. He also took his favorite fruit, mango, which grew abundantly there. His class was in the evening, and so he took time in the morning to speak with Abhiram. Abhiram presented an idea of forming a farm community in Florida. He told Srila Prabhupada about Disney World in Orlando, where Maya was presented expertly. We should also have a place like that, Prabhupada replied. It should be called Vaikuntha World. A farm community, Prabhupada said, should be according to Varnashram, and everyone should be engaged according to his propensity and occupation. The evening class was a treat. It was cool, about 70 degrees, compared to the oppressive heat of the day. The setting was dramatic. Spotlights shone on Srila Prabhupada as he sat on a Vyasasan under the banyan tree, while guests and disciples sat around his feet. Prabhupada chose to speak on the first verse of the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Although he lectured regularly on Bhagavad Gita as he traveled, he did not use consecutive verses from city to city. In each city, he would open the book at a different place and begin from there. Srila Prabhupada had repeatedly taught that the basis of Bhagavad Gita and of all spiritual life is to hear submissively from the spiritual master. Our Krishna consciousness movement is teaching people how to become submissive to the authority. Again, he recalled the psychiatrist who visited him in Caracas. The man's arrogant unsubmissiveness had made an impression on Prabhupada. Even so-called educated men were too proud to submit themselves to absolute authority. This psychiatrist's question was, Prabhupada said to his audience in Miami, the problems of the world are increasing, so what is your prescription to solve these problems? So the problem is very easy to be solved. I gave the example that the body is here, and there is something which is moving the body, the living force. So that living force is the driver of the body, and also the body is described in the Bhagavad Gita as a machine. Prabhupada explained the Bhagavad Gita verse, commenting that real knowledge was to know the difference between the self and the body. To manufacture a nice car or machine was not education. In India, Prabhupada said, he who knows how to join wires and bring current like an electrician is called a mistri. Mistri means worker, but that does not mean he is educated. Education is a different thing. But at the present moment, the education is technical. Formerly, this technical education was entrusted to the demons. Formerly, they also manufactured big airplanes, but that was being done by the demons, not by the great saintly persons or sages. No, that was being done by the demons. The yogis could also produce wonderful things by their yogic mystic power. That was another thing. But generally, where there was a question of manufacturing, that was being done by the demons. Education, however, means Brahma Vidya, to understand what is the living force within the body, what is his constitutional position, how is it working, where from it has come. On the second night, Prabhupada lectured again. Each talk was lengthy, and he answered all questions. As the last question on the last evening in Miami, one of the devotees asked, Srila Prabhupada, if someone takes prasadam even once, is it true that they are guaranteed at least a human body in their next life? Yes, Prabhupada replied. You go on simply eating, that's all. And all of my devotees, they have come to me simply by eating prasadam. As he said this, Prabhupada was beaming, smiling, looking all around. When his glance fell on Abhiram, the temple president, who sat beside him, Prabhupada said, You too, Abhiram? Abhiram looked sheepish and said, Yes, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada made other devotees admit their attraction for Krishna prasadam. You also? He asked, one after another. You also? Everyone admitted, until the audience was thrown into laughter and appreciation of prasadam. Yes, Prabhupada continued in good humor. So, we give all facilities. If you cannot do anything, please come and eat with us. All right. Thank you very much. Atlanta, February 28th to March 2nd, 1975. The deities of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu in Atlanta are over 4 feet tall and effulgent. Their lotus feet are usually fully visible, transcendently poised atop the whorls of lotus flowers. Their arms are upraised about their heads, and they urge everyone to dance and taste the nectar of the holy names of Krishna. Their faces show mild, compassionate smiles. And the mode of worship of God they are delivering, as described by Srila Prabhupada, is very, very lenient and easy to perform for the unfortunate people of the present age. On his arrival within the Atlanta temple, Srila Prabhupada was very moved to see Gaur Nitai. Now, in 3 consecutive stops, he had entered each ISKCON temple for the first time and taken the darshan of Gaur Nitai. This time, as in Caracas, it overwhelmed him. About 300 super enthusiastic devotees had gathered to meet him. Aside from the residential devotees of the Atlanta temple, some 40 brahmacharis from Tamal Krishna Goswami's Radha Damodar bus parties, about a dozen brahmacharis from Satsvarup Maharaj's traveling library party, about a dozen men from Tripurari's airport book distribution party, and devotee scientists of Swarup Damodar's Bhaktivedanta Institute group, and other visitors were present. They had greeted Prabhupada outside the building as he had pulled up in a black Lincoln, and now they followed him with an uproarious kirtan into the temple room within the large house that served as the Atlanta temple. Srila Prabhupada stood before the deities. The ceiling and walls of the deity room were mirrored and produced an unusual effect, multiplying the images of the Gaur Nitai deities. Prabhupada approved of it. He then walked from the front altar to his Vyasasan, glancing upon the devotees as they parted their tight ranks and allowed him to pass. He sat upon the Vyasasan, facing the devotees, who quickly hushed into silence. So, I am very glad to see you, Srila Prabhupada began. I am coming first of all from Mexico City, then Caracas, then Miami. I see your temple is the best." At this, the assembled devotees, especially the Atlanta devotees, burst into loud, unrestrained cheers and cries of "Jai, Haribol!" So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very kind, Srila Prabhupada continued. Parama Karuna Pahu Dui Jana. Two lords, Nitai Gaurchandra, Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They are very kind, you see. They have appeared just to reclaim the fallen souls of this age. So, they are more kind than Krishna. Krishna, he is also very kind. He comes to deliver. But Krishna demands, first of all, surrender. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not demand. At this point, Srila Prabhupada became overwhelmed with transcendental emotion. He tried to speak. He uttered, "He is so kind." But then his voice broke, and he began to shed tears. He spoke on, but his voice became very high as he was gripped by an ecstasy that made him helpless and inconceivably humble. "So take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu," he cried out, "and be happy. Thank you very much." And then he stopped, unable to say more. The devotees themselves felt carried away and cried out, "Haribol!" in loud unison. Then, as if commanded, they all bowed down and uttered obeisances. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Srila Prabhupada's arrival address was thus completed in 2 minutes, and he motioned to his servant that he wanted to go. The devotees were stunned at his brief, powerful entry. That same evening, Prabhupada came down again from his room. Again, he sat on his Vyasasan and said he would teach a song, Parama Karuna. He started chanting slowly with his kartals, and the devotees tried to follow, although few knew the song. Parama Karuna Pahu Dui Jana, Nitai Gaura Chandra, Sabha Avatara Sara, Shiromani, Kevala Ananda Kanda. After a few moments, he asked devotees to play along with him on mridanga. A few tried, but no one seemed able to find the right beat. Srila Prabhupada then stopped them and said he would show the right drum pattern. He had a devotee rewind the tape recorder that had just recorded Prabhupada playing kartals and chanting so that he could accompany himself. The devotees were especially surprised, since no one could remember exactly how long it had been since he had played the mridanga. The devotees produced one old mridanga, but it sounded dead. A second drum was passed forward, but it was also dead. Then, a boy offered his personal drum, a mridanga covered with a bright red and gold cloth. Srila Prabhupada placed it on his lap, tested it, and found it acceptable. He then began to play, while devotees taped a complete recording of Prabhupada playing kartals, mridanga, and singing. In another unusual touch, Srila Prabhupada had put on his glasses, adding an air of studious concentration to his playing and singing. Bhajo Bhajo Bhai, Chaitanya Nitai, Sudridha Vishwasa Kori, Vishaya Charya Se Rase Majia, Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari. When Prabhupada finished singing, he explained, Pahu means Prabhu. A shortcut of Prabhu is Pahu. Prabhu means Lord or Master. So these two Prabhus are Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is addressed as Mahaprabhu, and others are addressed as Prabhu. So these two Prabhus, Nityananda Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, are very merciful. It was as if Srila Prabhupada was giving a purport to the uncontrollable ecstasy that overcame him earlier when he was unable to speak. Parama Karuna means extremely merciful, Prabhupada explained. Extremely merciful because Krishna is also merciful, since he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his original feature. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Krishna, but he is acting as devotee. He is not acting as Krishna. He is acting as devotee of Krishna. Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne. Srila Prabhupada then quoted the verse by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, further describing the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya has come to teach us because we are all in the bodily concept of life. He has come to teach us detachment and devotional service to Krishna. Prabhupada recited another verse, the one Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered to Ramananda Roy as the perfection of religion. That verse begins, Jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva. The meaning, Srila Prabhupada explained, is that one should give up other processes and just hear about Krishna. And to hear about him, you do not require to change your position. Stane stitaha. You are scientist, that is all right. You are lawyer, that is all right. You are fool, that's all right. But you do one thing. You use your ear and hear from the realized soul. In his explanation, Srila Prabhupada told of different events from the life of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come here in Atlanta, he concluded. So you worship this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Parama Karuna Pahu Dui Jana. They are very, very merciful. A little service will enhance your devotional service to a larger scale. The next morning, devotees rushed to accompany Srila Prabhupada on a walk in Piedmont Park. Book distributors from Tripurari's party, as well as the library party men, went along to ask Srila Prabhupada questions. The weather was unusually cold. Balavanta, the temple president, had warmed up the car 10 minutes in advance so that Prabhupada would not be cold. This cold is not bad, Prabhupada remarked. Actually, it is pleasant. Nevertheless, Srila Prabhupada wore his full-length saffron coat with hood and lining. He left his head uncovered, and his forehead bore fresh white tilak marks. Several garlands were draped over his chest. Walking briskly, he strode through the dew-laden park, while devotees ran alongside, covering their heads with chadars and rubbing their hands together in the invigorating chilly air. Tripurari. Srila Prabhupada, sometimes when we give someone a book, he says, I would never read it. Prabhupada chuckled. You ask him, so you want to remain mudha? Tripurari. We say, no, take it home, and someday you will read it. But they think they can find out on their own. Prabhupada. That is foolishness. They cannot. Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etang tarantite. As they walked, Prabhupada noticed a big sign by the lake marked, no swimming. Oh, Prabhupada remarked, who is going to swim now? The devotees laughed, a comic relief to their shivering. Tripurari. Once, Balavanta was very sick when he was dealing with politicians, and I heard that you said that it was because by touching them and associating with them, he accepted some of their sinful reactions. Prabhupada chuckled again. I did not say, but it may be. Tripurari. So, I was wondering, sometimes our men on Sankirtan are shaking hands. Prabhupada. If you are on Sankirtan, you cannot be infected. If somebody is infected, then preaching will stop. If a doctor is infected, then treatment will stop. But the doctor is never infected. They have good precautions. Similarly, when you are engaged in Sankirtan, Maya cannot touch. Mayam etang tarantite. One of the devotees from the library party spoke up and told some of their experiences in dealing with professors. Devotee: when we take your books out on the library party to the professors, they say that they are very surprised that one person has written so many books. So I am also surprised, Prabhupada said. How I have written so many, what to speak of them, it is all Krishna's mercy. Devotee: one professor the other day was saying, just like a devotee, that you were coming into cyclic succession and were authorized to translate all these books. Yes, that is right, Prabhupada agreed. In fact, that authority I have got. I was explaining last evening. Don't speculate. That is the qualification. All others, they are simply speculating. For most of the devotees on the walk that morning, it was the first time they had ever been able to approach Srila Prabhupada in person. They had been dedicatedly serving him day and night for years, and this was the chance of a lifetime. In some cases, the questions they asked were calculated to wash away all their doubts and would be the basis of their entire devotional strength in the future. In this mood, one of the library party distributors, Mahabudhi, moved in close beside Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, Mahabudhi said, in my service I have to always meet many educated people, much more educated than I am. So we are trying to present the philosophy, but I'm not so inclined to study all your books. I'm just not scholarly inclined. Prabhupada laughed and replied, just pray to Krishna then. Tesham satata yuktanang bhajatam priti purvakam. Pray like this to Krishna every day. My dear Krishna, please give me the intelligence so that I may be able to become empowered. On the second day of Prabhupada's jam-packed stay in Atlanta, the devotee scientists wanted to see him. Srila Prabhupada had already given his PhD disciple Swarup Damodar many instructions on defeating the atheistic theories of the scientists, and Swarup Damodar had written a small book, The Scientific Basis of Krishna Consciousness, which pleased Srila Prabhupada very much. Now, Swarup Damodar, Sadaputa, and other PhD scientists who had become Srila Prabhupada's initiated disciples gathered in Atlanta to get his darshan and further advice. They also hoped to hear Srila Prabhupada talk with some guests they had invited from the scientific world. In a meeting with these disciple scientists, Srila Prabhupada expressed his intense desire to see Krishna-conscious philosophy defeat the bombastic claims of science that life occurs by chance or from matter. These people have no common sense, Srila Prabhupada said, and they all pass as scientists. That we must protest because we are servants of God. We are not servants of scientists. Call them directly rascal. We are not a scientist, but we speak from common sense, that's all. So many people are being misled by these scientists and politicians. Srila Prabhupada commented that the creation is already created, and therefore the scientists should get no credit in their latest attempts to imitate the creation with their test tube babies. We have got the test tube, Srila Prabhupada said, Bhagavad Gita. As soon as you see a man who has not surrendered to Krishna, all right, then he is mudha, that's all. Like the book distributors, Swarup Damodar and his scientist godbrothers questioned Prabhupada to their heart's content, and with great enthusiasm he urged them to answer as he was doing and expose the rascals. On the same day, in the presence of his scientist disciples, Srila Prabhupada met with an Indian scientist who was a specialist in nutrition. The man explained that his work benefited mankind by finding the cause of and treating protein deficiencies. Srila Prabhupada replied, suppose the birds and beasts have no research institute, yet there is sufficient protein supplied by nature. An elephant has got a big body and so much strength, but they have not found that by your scientific research. The nature is supplying. Prakrite kriya manani gunai karmanai sarvashaha. It is being done. Why you are wasting time in this way? You study what is Prakriti and what is behind Prakriti. That is real study. The protein supply is already being done, just like a cow is eating grass, and she is supplying milk full of protein. So do you think that the protein is coming from the grass? Can you eat grass? Scientist. Something must be. Prabhupada. That is something. That is not perfect knowledge. Everyone knows the cow does not take any protein food. She takes on the grass. Scientist. Grass is quite rich in protein. Prabhupada. Then you take. Why are you searching after protein? Scientist. Because we cannot digest the fiber in it. Prabhupada. Then it is not suitable for you. Therefore, nature's arrangement is that protein can be produced through the body of the cow. Scientist. I think, Swamiji, nature's arrangement was not made for that many human beings as we now have on Earth. Prabhupada. Nature was defective, you mean to say? Scientist. No, sir. Prabhupada. Then? Scientist. I mean, nature's way is designed that the ecological balance of the... And so it went. When the Indian scientists said that the flesh of the cow was valuable for its protein, Prabhupada became disgusted. But however much protein you may accumulate, Prabhupada challenged, can you stop your death? After debating some 40 minutes with the Indian scientist, the devotees abruptly brought a professor of religion from Emory University into the room. It was simply one meeting after another for Srila Prabhupada. The devotees were perhaps not completely aware that they were, in effect, asking Srila Prabhupada to talk non-stop all day. But he did not complain. He immediately asked the professor, "What is your definition of religion?" And then, in the silence, Prabhupada launched into a definitive discussion of God consciousness according to Srimad Bhagavatam. Along with the professor had come several Orthodox Christians. In the course of the discussion, one of them said to Srila Prabhupada, "God is my life. Without him, I cannot live. I understand what you are saying, but I believe that our tradition from the Old Testament says that we were created by God." Srila Prabhupada had been explaining that the living entity is never created, but is eternal, just like God. Prabhupada. Yes, in one sense, we are created. Just like the Father creates the sons, it is not that the sons create the Father. In that sense, we are created. So, taking this word, the sons are created. Therefore, the Father existed before our creation. The Orthodox Christian respected Prabhupada's explanation and seemed to sense that behind the apparent differences, Prabhupada, like he, was a follower of God. "It's a mystery," the Christian said reverently. "We can only bow down before him then." "That is our business," Prabhupada said. Prabhupada had recognized God's ultimately inconceivable nature in such a simple but sublime way by saying, "That is our business." That everyone in the room laughed in appreciation, both at the inconceivable nature of God and at the magical moment created before their eyes by God's pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. March 2nd, Srila Prabhupada's third and last day in Atlanta, was filled to the brim and overflowing with his distribution of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. It happened to be the appearance day of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and so, in the morning, Srila Prabhupada held a special observance. The devotees placed a large picture of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati on a special Vyasasan, and they hoped Prabhupada himself would perform the arti, although they did not dare ask him. No one else stepped forward to perform the ceremony, however, and Srila Prabhupada could understand the hearts of the assembled devotees. "Maybe I should perform the arti," he said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. "I should do it." "All the devotees think so, Srila Prabhupada. They would be very happy if you did." "Yes, I will do it." So, Srila Prabhupada performed another rarely seen activity in Atlanta as he offered each article, the ghee wick flame, the water and the conch shell, and so on, before the picture of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. That morning, Srila Prabhupada spoke about serving the spiritual master in separation. You should always pray, Prabhupada said, that only by the grace of the spiritual master we achieve the grace or mercy of Krishna. That is the meaning of Vyasa Puja. As far as possible, we have tried to give you instruction, books, but remain always faithful to the spiritual master and try to understand Krishna. Any other so-called understanding is simply a waste of time. Later that day, Tripurari and other book distributors met with Srila Prabhupada. Tripurari: we have been trying harder and harder, Srila Prabhupada, to make our techniques of distribution more honest and to be straightforward and not to cheat so much as some of the methods in the past. Prabhupada: no, the thing is that Krishna's service is so sublime that even if we cheat, we are not culprit. But because we have to deal with the worldly men, we have to go according to their rules and regulations on cheating. Otherwise, a devotee of Krishna, he never cheats. He never cheats whatever he does. The mother says to the child, my dear child, if you take this medicine, I will give you this laddu. The child is deviated. He is not able to digest the laddu, but the mother sometimes cheats, and when he takes the medicine, the laddu is not delivered. Similarly, we have to say so many things very pleasing to him. But our business is let him take this medicine. That is our tactic. That is not cheating. If the mother helps the child drinking medicine, then afterwards she does not supply the laddu, that is not cheating. Somehow or other, that is the instruction of Rupa Goswami. Tasmat kenyapyu pe payena manaha krishne niveshayet. Somehow or other, let everyone be Krishna conscious. The other rules and regulations will act as the servant, but the main business is to bring one to Krishna consciousness. We are not meant for cheating anyone. We have no such business. But to lead one to Krishna consciousness, we may sometimes say some things, and that is not cheating. Tripurari: just by distributing your books, we can become self-realized? Prabhupada: you are already self-realized. Otherwise, how can you push on the books? You love Krishna, therefore you are taking so much labor for pushing on. That is self-realization. If anyone tries to establish that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, that is self-realization. Tripurari: sometimes the devotees ask if they can take birth again distributing books for you. Prabhupada: very good. That is real devotion. A devotee does not want to go to Vaikuntha or any liberation. They are satisfied with service. That is pure devotion. And distributing books for the benefit of going to Krishna, that is selfishness. But I want to simply distribute the books without any remuneration, without any personal desire. That is pure devotee. Prahlad Maharaj says, I do not wish to go to Vaikuntha unless I take all these rascals with me. That is pure devotee. Tamal Krishna Goswami: at that time, I took the liberty to introduce many devotees from our Radha Damodar party to Srila Prabhupada, because I had an intimate relationship with Prabhupada in India that carried over also in America, and I felt that he would personally want to meet all the devotees on our party. So, one by one, every devotee from our party, only about half of our party was there, say about 40 devotees, was introduced to Prabhupada. This person is a mechanic, I would say, and this person is a cook, or this person is sewing for the deities. In this way, Prabhupada met each devotee, and at the end he said, Krishna has sent you every type of assistant in order to make this program a great success. Then Prabhupada proceeded to give a very powerful lecture about remaining brahmachari, telling the men, why bother to get married? When you get married, your wife will immediately say, where is the house? Where are the children? Where is the clothing? Where is the food? In this way, there will be so many problems. He said it was better to stay simple and remain brahmachari and preach Lord Chaitanya's mission. Srila Prabhupada passed the rest of the day with the hundreds of devotees and guests who had gathered for the Sunday feast. He gave a long lecture, and then for 1.5 hours he answered questions. When a devotee asked, "How can we please you the most?" Srila Prabhupada replied, "By loving Krishna." Afterwards, the devotees performed a play depicting Lord Chaitanya's civil disobedience movement. In the drama, one of the Smarta Brahmins was complaining to the Muslim Qazi about the public chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra by Lord Chaitanya and his followers. The Brahmin said that the potency of the mantra would be lost by the public chanting of Hare Krishna. Here Srila Prabhupada interrupted the play, exclaiming, "But it has already increased." When Prabhupada said that, hundreds of joyous devotees began crying out, "Haribol, Jai," as a testimony to Srila Prabhupada's words. By the grace of Srila Prabhupada, the potency of Hare Krishna was expanded more and more. Before departing Atlanta, Prabhupada spoke with the temple president, Lilamrta, concerning political preaching. Prabhupada had been attracted previously when Lilamrta had run for mayor of Atlanta. Subsequently, Lilamrta and others had formed the political party In God We Trust, which Prabhupada had also approved, until the devotees showed signs of diverting funds and energy from the mainstream activities of ISKCON. Therefore, for the time being, Lilamrta had stopped political preaching. Neither did he bring it up to Prabhupada in this visit, but in his room, Prabhupada sat with Lilamrta talking. "So, you want to take again election?" Prabhupada asked, and he chuckled. "Not if you don't want me to, Prabhupada," Lilamrta replied. "I just take it as an opportunity to preach if you want it. But if you're not very enthusiastic about it, I don't want to do it." "No, I am enthusiastic," Prabhupada said, "provided you don't want money." "I think we can get our own. I can get the money. It doesn't have to cost very much. The whole thing we would need is maybe 2 men to help. That's only for 2 or 3 months of the year." "Then you can do it," Prabhupada concluded. "If it makes you well known in the city and you get the opportunity of criticizing the demons." Lilamrta. When Prabhupada was leaving at the airport, I was determined to stay with him until the last moment. On the way down the hall, he had given me a rose. I followed him all the way onto the plane. I was thinking, I'm going to stand here in my post in front of Prabhupada's seat and guard against any demons that disturb Prabhupada. I saw how insignificant the karmis were in comparison to him. I was thinking that I will not let them interfere with my service of standing in front of Prabhupada. So I was blocking the aisle, and people were having to squeeze to get around. Prabhupada sort of chastised me lightly with his eyes, that I should be courteous to people and mindful, not impolite and disturbing. And I noticed that was the way he was. Although when he walked through the airport he dominated the people's consciousness, he did not try to do that. That happened automatically. When he was on the plane, he was very nicely sitting in his seat in a gentlemanly way, without creating a big disturbance. From his behavior I gathered how the devotees should go through this material world, not trying to cause a big disturbance, not being neglectful of others' positions, but being respectful and not causing anyone any mental anxiety, living peacefully, but taking every opportunity to preach Krishna consciousness in an appropriate way. I could see that here was a representative of God. We have never seen a representative of God before, so immediately it was very important for us to see how he behaved. It was important for everyone to see. But at the same time, Prabhupada was very careful to represent Krishna in an appropriate way, because those who don't recognize him as a representative of God cannot be forced to. After Atlanta, Srila Prabhupada traveled to Dallas, New York, London, and Tehran, staying only a few days in each place before flying to Bombay and then on to Calcutta and Mayapur in time for the annual festival of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Appearance Day. After Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Appearance Day came the grand opening of the Krishna Balaram Temple in Vrindavan, and then Srila Prabhupada set out traveling again on another around-the-world Sankirtan orbit. Srila Prabhupada himself said that he was an old man, hampered by age, and requiring 3 assistants to help him move about. But actually, he was moving transcendentally. Otherwise, how was it possible? His around-the-world journey was not a matter of merely moving over the earth by jet or car. Such a mundane journey many ordinary men can make. But Srila Prabhupada's journey was one in which the traveler, being a pure devotee, gave pure love of Krishna to people everywhere. Krishnadas Kaviraj praises Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita for possessing Krishna Shakti, the full power of Krishna, because he delivered love of Krishna all over the world. Srila Prabhupada's travels around the world similarly establish his Krishna Shakti because wherever he and his movement traveled, the inhabitants took to Kali Kalera Dharma, the method of pure religion intended for humanity in the age of Kali. Inducing sinful people in sinful cultures to take up pure Krishna consciousness is not something an old man or a common man can do. The Shastras describe the conditioned souls as wandering in the material world, transmigrating from body to body one after another. In each species, they suffer birth, death, disease, and old age. Because there are millions of desires and millions of species of life in which to fulfill those desires, there is little hope that the soul can ever end his journey from one body to another, life after life. Also, because the soul, especially in the human form of life, commits many abominable acts against the will of God, the jiva takes birth again and again to suffer the reactions for the pains he has caused others. That is the stiff, inflexible law of nature. For killing a cow, for example, a human being must take as many births as there are hairs on the body of that cow, and be killed himself in each birth. For committing the sin of abortion, one has to be killed within the mother's womb, life after life, again and again. Such acts as animal slaughter and contraception are commonplace in the present age. Therefore, there is little chance for a person to save himself from the continued repetition of birth, suffering, and death. But Srila Prabhupada's preaching contained the potency to deliver any sinful person from such perpetual sufferings, and this is the real significance of Prabhupada's traveling. Not understanding the facts of karma or the pure devotee's power to deliver a person from karma, people misunderstood Prabhupada to be, at best, the pious representative of an Indian religion. Krishna declares in Bhagavad Gita, "Give up all religion and just surrender to me. I will release you from the reactions of your sins. Do not worry." But only by the merciful intervention of the pure devotee does Krishna pardon our sins. And because most sinful people are not seeking relief unless the pure devotee comes to deliver them, their lives are hopeless. If externally it appeared that Srila Prabhupada was suffering from old age and from his constant traveling, or if sometimes Srila Prabhupada described himself as an old man, unfit for such rigorous traveling, then we should take this as a further indication that Srila Prabhupada endured much austerity to carry the message of Krishna throughout the world. But internally, he was always thinking of Krishna, and therefore he was not disturbed. The order of his spiritual master impelled him to travel. And his travels bore great fruit, so much so that by 1975 he was traveling not as a lone pioneer, but as the founder Acharya of a large world religion. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness was being more and more appreciated as the movement of pure devotional service to God, a movement available for men in all religions and lands who hanker for pure worship and pure service unto the personality of Godhead. As the authorized representative of Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada had a special insight into the great leniency and compassion of Lord Chaitanya in delivering the fallen. As stated in the Brihan Naradiya Purana, only by chanting the holy name, only by chanting the holy name, only by chanting the holy name can persons be saved in the age of Kali. There is no other way. Srila Prabhupada realized this verse by practical experience, as he saw firsthand the mercy of Lord Chaitanya at work. Therefore, when Prabhupada would arrive at an ISKCON temple and come before Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who stand on the temple altar, he would sometimes become overwhelmed by the mercy of the Lord and be unable to check his own ecstatic loving emotions. Srila Prabhupada was very dear to Krishna, and certainly Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu observed Srila Prabhupada's preaching and traveling activities, perhaps in the same mood in which he heard the compassionate prayer of Vasudev Dutt, as expressed in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Quote, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard Vasudev Dutta's statement, his heart became very soft. Tears flowed from his eyes, and he began to tremble. Unquote. As Srila Prabhupada has described Vasudev Dutt, who wanted to save all the conditioned souls of the universe, so I would also like to describe Srila Prabhupada, not out of partiality, but on the evidence of Prabhupada's life and teachings, and on the strength of Shastra. Quote, a Vaishnava is so liberal that he is prepared to risk everything to rescue the conditioned souls from material existence. Ellipses. He was a most exalted personality who wanted to show mercy upon conditioned souls. Ellipses. He was a Vaishnava para dukkha dukhi, very much aggrieved to see others suffer. Ellipses. One who executes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission must be considered to be eternally liberated. He is a transcendental person and does not belong to this material world. Such a devotee engaging in the deliverance of the total population is as magnanimous as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Ellipses. Such a personality factually represents Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because his heart is always filled with compassion for conditioned souls. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, Chapter 15, Text 163, Purport.